So give us a mark out of 10.
We're maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10 at the moment. There's some serious work we need to do.
We've got no real clue where to start this conversation in terms of, what is the first thing on your to-do list?
Probably what was true in Wales, which might be different from the situation in England, was it wasn't just the platform was burning, it was under the sea.
You've got leadership issues, commercial challenges, governance problems, misogyny. Where on earth have you started in trying to get the boat back above the waterline again?
Crikey, I didn't realise the list was that long, but thank you for reminding me of that. But the history's super important, but we've also got to think about the next generation of rugby fans. My job's performance, and if you can start to get the performance right, then everything else will start to take care of itself.
That's an incredible CV. What the hell are you doing back in rugby?
I ask myself the same question most days, actually, Hask.
Alex Payne trying to keep the side going forward. Haskell takes it on now with just relentless chat. And there's Tindall to add the finishing touch of glamour and World Cup winning stories. A dominant display by the good, the bad and the rugby.
Hello, Dream Team. I hope you're all well. International rugby is nearly upon us, but following the news last week that the Welsh Rugby Union is set to cut a region by the end of the 27-28 season, we thought we'd get the man right at the centre of the decision-making process to join us on this week's show. So we will be hearing from Dave Reddin, current Director of Rugby and Elite Performance at the WRU. Before then, Hask and Tins are back.
Yes, we are. And the Lock-In Live tour is now underway and hitting these cities and towns. This evening, Wednesday, the 29th of October, we are in Warwick. On Thursday, we are in Birmingham. We have a big Friday night in Cardiff on the 31st. We'll be in Oxford on Sunday, the 2nd of November, Reading on the 3rd, and Guildford on the 5th. Details of how to order your tickets are on screen and in the episode description box.
We would love to see you there. We always love being out and about on tour and seeing the great and the good of the good and the bad of the rugby. But let's get into this week's show, and we'll start with a quick thanks to our sponsors, Continental Tyres. Continental Tyres are the official tyre partner to England Rugby, engineered for victory. Their award-winning tyres are built to perform no matter the conditions.
As we dive deeper into autumn, it's worth remembering that October is Tyre Safety Month. Payno and I put together a really fun video from our visits to the Contidrome, where we experienced firsthand how premium tyres perform in real driving conditions.
We won't spoil it, but should we spoil it?
Well, you spoiled it.
I saw a bit of that, and I saw
It's good fun.
you holding on for dear life and swearing a lot.
Yeah, I know. Well, that was sort of acting.
And you being not your usual driver, you actually felt like you had your foot on the accelerator.
I'm always smoking it.
Jimmy the handbrake spent more time off the track than on it.
that was big.
A lot of time going around in circles.
The bloke was like, you should be a special driver. You're very strong. You're a good guy.
Special being the operative word.
He was a very strong man. Drive very well.
What we do need to do is get him out there at some point, because that may well break course records.
Yeah,
but in the meantime, remember, premium tyres don't just improve performance, they provide better safety control and stopping power compared to budget tyres. And you can learn more about Continental Tyres at continental-tyres.co.uk. Now is the time to get your wheels checked. So, very special guest to come on this week's show. Another chapter, I suppose, in rugby doing rugby type things. Before we get into Dave and all things WRU, R360. We'll talk a bit about the Autumn Internationals as well. Where are you currently with R360?
I think it's been interesting just reading everything, and I think, and then having to listen to it and having to listen to people talk about everything, that even though you haven't said anything yet.
Yeah.
Because, I think...
Are you winning or losing the PR story?
We're letting the discussion go on outside of our remit, but it gives us all those questions that we need to know. The fundamentals are we are still here for the betterment of rugby. I think, and it's something I've got to be aware of. Like, I love the Prem, I love Super Rugby, I still watch all of them. I watched Gloucester Hartbury play in the women's on the weekend. Rugby is still my love, and what we're trying to do with R360 isn't about breaking that. It's about trying to enhance it. And I've got to be, what has probably come out of is I've got to be more aware of what we're actually trying to do, rather than getting frustrated about what I hear about people saying about me personally, which has been difficult. But it's sort of helped focus on why we're doing it.
We would like to do a show, as I think it's very important to differentiate as well, that R360 is not a GBR affiliation.
No, we tried to make it one, but you didn't fucking include it. So,
but I think we both have challenges what you're doing as well, and there are a lot of questions that we have that you haven't. That we haven't discussed even backstage, but we would like to try and do a show with you post the Autumn Nation. Let's let the rugby breathe for now. Are you up for something in December?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's going to be more scenarios that come out that can that help sort of equate what we are for this week. Stephen Jones writes something about Tom Willis and the ridiculous selection policy of how people who play in France can't, and that is
Can't be picked for England.
Yeah, it can't be picked for England. That is a potential of why, the concept of R360 came out, because you want your best players to be able to do both, surely.
Yep.
Now, you've got to find a way that works in the current ecosystem, and that's something that we are constantly trying to strive on and work towards.
All sorts of problems around Wales, South Africa and selection as well. Another
so
Wales
again,
South Africa
international windows and the games. And that is the fundamental of what R360 has been born out of. And yes, obviously there is still a club game that we all love and is for the traditionalists. But what we're building isn't necessarily for the traditionalists, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have a place.
Cool. Okay. Send your questions in. We'll try and get to as many of those on a special show around R360 in December, and we will try and get as much detail out of you as we possibly can. You mentioned Tom Willis. We haven't heard from you on his decision to say, no thanks, England, and my EPS contract. I'm back to Bordeaux. Give us your breakdown.
It's a big decision. I obviously haven't spoken to him about it. I'd probably like to catch up at some point just to find out, because you're playing at Saracens, doing what he was doing, tearing up trees, a very promising England career. But you might have to make smart decisions. You get a very limited career to make hay while the sun shines. To make a decision for Tom to go to European champions, I mean, they're an incredible club playing incredible rugby. Just got to look at his brother, Jack, the quality of life he has. I don't think it's a wrong decision. I think it's a very smart one. I think not playing for England is a massive decision that he wouldn't have taken lightly. I've got to say, I think the RFU are barking mad. I think they've got to change it. I just don't see, again, why rugby thinks it's got a monopoly on keeping players. It works in football, works in most other sports. Why do we think there's going to be a massive exodus? It would actually take less pressure off. I mean, I'm about to write the foreword again for the Leonard Curtis report on rugby. Last time I wrote it, 7 teams were balance sheet insolvent, and the wheels are falling off. We're a further year down. I don't know what I'm going to find because I haven't seen the report yet, but I can't imagine there's going to be a transformation of riches and stuff. So I respect it. I think he's a great guy, great player, and what a club to go to, and why not?
It just shows as well that talent can come from anywhere. The other big thing in the England squad is obviously Noah Kalori coming straight in 5 weeks since he played for Amp Hill. And then he obviously scored 5 against Sale in that smashing, and then played against Northampton, played against Tommy Freeman. Probably Tommy came out the winner on that one, but he's now in the full squad. So it just shows that players can come out of nowhere and then suddenly be full. It shows that what is he 6'5" or something? He is?
Yeah.
No. So
with proper hang time.
I mean the one jump, I can't remember whether it was a kickoff. Yeah, he has got a good standing jump without a shadow of a doubt. And, suddenly you have players that are now moaning that Adam Radwan's not in the full squad. How do you have one when he's scoring tries for fun? And I think you look at England's back 3 options, they are
6 wingers.
They are
Steve
plentiful.
Squad. It's a lot of firepower.
But it just shows that people can come from nowhere. So I'm pretty sure that at the same time, whilst Tom goes off to France, I'm pretty sure you'll see someone appear from, where Courtney Law's left to go to France, and then suddenly Henry Pollock turns up.
As a lion in 6 months.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the point.
And that's the thing is, people worry, but everyone is now talking about how strong England's depth is.
Yeah.
And
but that's the point. That's why I think if R360 happens, the Premiership resets. If lots of players go to France, other talent comes in. You're just opening doors, allowing space, but it should be an open market to have the freedom to choose. I don't think one is better than the other, and I don't think it inhibits us. I think it actually makes us stronger.
Yeah, as long as it makes the whole game stronger. That's the whole point of it.
Talking about England talent, a quick look ahead at November. Australia, November the 1st, 3:10 kickoff. Fiji, November the 8th at 5:40. New Zealand, November the 15th at 3:10. And Argentina is a Sunday game on November the 23rd at 4:10. Enjoy if you're going. Watch on TNT Sports if you're not. What is par for England this November? And what is, good is obviously 4 out of 4. What is unacceptable for England this November?
1. 1 out of 4 is unacceptable.
1 out of 4 is unacceptable. Par is 3 or 2?
3, I'd say. I suppose
I
three.
think looking at it, 3. And I think they could quite easily go and win 4, which would be
interestingly. Just thinking about it, Australia won their last November. Fiji won on their last trip to Twickenham pre-Rugby World Cup. New Zealand won last time out, and Argentina won last time out. So all
It's okay,
four.
one's a good one.
So all four of those.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think all four of those won on their last trips to Twickenham.
Yeah, maybe. I
play England,
I think the
they
reason we're
qualify.
positive is because of the performances they put in Argentina, the depth in the squad, the addition of Lee Blackett. They were in a really good place. Last time we picked up England, they were the flavour of the month world beaters. Let us see how the autumn goes, and let's see in 5 weeks' time whether we're still positive or everyone's doing what they normally do. Is Steve the right man for the job? I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I just want it to be rocking. I want Twickenham to be rocking.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And if it does that, I think the team will deliver. So it's all down to the fans.
Such a good month to come. And obviously we'll get really into the rugby over the course of the next 4 weeks or so, the highs and the lows as well. But there is one big elephant in the room coming into a box office November, and that is the fact that there are obviously high hopes for England, Ireland and France, as we've mentioned. Scotland will hope to take chunks out of New Zealand and Argentina, and that leaves Wales. After desperate 2 years and yet more infighting and rumoured restructuring, all rugby fans across the board are watching and waiting. One win in 19. Argentina, Japan, New Zealand and South Africa over the next 4 weekends or so. Good luck. So where do Wales go from here? Well, to help answer the question, as we've mentioned, our guest today is Dave Reddin, who is the Director of Rugby and Elite Performance at the WRU. He was part of England's coaching setup in 2003 as they won the World Cup. Having joined in 1998, he served as Head of Performance for Team GB at the London 2012 Olympic Games and led team strategy at the FA from 2014 to 2019. Having worked alongside icons such as Sir Clive Woodward and Sir Gareth Southgate, he is renowned for transforming teams and creating winning elite cultures. He also completed arguably the hardest task in sport, which was getting the England football team to win a penalty shootout in a World Cup. How on earth did you do that? What was the secret to that success?
Well, that might take longer than an hour. We've got. I learned all I knew from Tins performing under pressure, so some of it came from those days.
There you go.
Two from two, Dave. That's all I can
Dave,
say.
can I ask you, that's an incredible CV. What the hell are you doing back in rugby?
I ask myself the same question most days.
That's a good question on where to start. How did that come up? How did you end up at the WRU? What made you want to sort of climb back over the
good
fence?
question. So I guess the bit I'd done before that, I'd taken on a bit of a crazy project with a couple of friends of mine where we convinced an investor to help us buy a Spanish football club because we thought we had a nice investment thesis. So for a couple of years I was running a club in Spain, a club called Castellón, which is near Valencia. And that had been a brilliant project, but was a huge amount of travelling. And after a couple of years of that and getting promotion, I was pretty tired and back in the consulting game. And I don't know, my daughter's just finished school. So I was thinking about what next and asking myself the question whether another big project was on the cards. And then this one came up and I thought I'll just throw my hat in and see how it went. And it gathered a bit of a momentum all of its own after that. So here we are.
What was the process actually like?
So the Welsh Rugby Union employed a headhunter, and so that's how I originally found out about it. And then standard several rounds of interviewing online and then in person. And then I think that was back in April or so during the year. And I did spend a reasonable amount of time thinking through it. It wasn't sort of a gut feeling because I genuinely believe there's a huge opportunity. I mean, there's not many bigger projects just at the moment in sport if you want to turn around. But there's some big challenges there. So I quite like a challenge, and this is certainly one of them. So in that period of time, it's been pretty relentless from starting off full time in only September, although I was doing a bit before that for the first couple of months.
Warren Gatland came back a couple of years ago for the second time and said he took the job and then rolled up his sleeves and got back involved. And if he'd known what he discovered when the job was offered to him, he wouldn't have taken it. How much research did you do? How much looking under the bonnet and under the carpet? And how many people did you speak to before taking the job? And now that you've got a desk in the corner office, what is your perception of what you've taken on relative to what you thought you were taking on?
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to a lot of people before taking it on. A lot of people who'd worked in Wales, some people who worked with the team over the years. People like Clive, Woodward I spoke to just to get an external perspective and check my sanity. I think it's much like many turnaround projects that you do. You never know all of it. I think you know most of it before you go in. It was, in a relative sense, the same going into the FA in 2014. It was similar taking on this football club challenge in Spain. You always find out more when you get there. But most stuff's fixable. I don't think it's terminal, so if you like a turnaround project, then it's going to be messy at the beginning. And, there's certainly a lot to change in Wales. But there's also a huge amount of potential. And the passion, of course, is undoubted. So if you can try and marry those things together and you get a board on side and an executive around it who want to go and chase something exciting, then it's going to be a great project.
We talk about this all the time. The tradition of rugby, a lot of the time, gets in the way of the moving forward. Is it hard to sort of, you've got to separate, obviously you said in the paper that you're not worried about, Llanelli beat the All Blacks 40 years ago. I'm not worried about that now. That's got no relevance, which is completely true. But how do you navigate those channels to make sure, the tradition side, which, all the Welsh fans love, is kept on side, but you are allowed to carve forward to actually create a future for Wales?
It's bloody difficult because people are emotional about it. They're connected to it, and if I bring anything, probably one of the most important things is I'm not directly emotionally connected to it. I'm a bit distant from it. I can give a different perspective on it, and at times that's going to mean I'm probably going to upset a few people because I don't understand all of the history. But if looking at it from the outside, it's been a long time since I've been involved in rugby, 15 years or so. I said to someone the other day, I remember being involved in the first professional game. I was working at Tigers at the time, and Tigers played Saracens at Enfield Town Football Club in 1997. And Enfield Town Football Club held 5,000 people playing a tenner each, and I can assure you there was a lot more than a tenner's worth of wages on the pitch, and it didn't work, right? The economics didn't work. I'm not convinced they've ever worked since. So the traditions are great, but things have to move on, and we're in a different world now. Different generations of people watching the game. They have different appetites for it. So I don't mind being the unpopular one everyone's going to sort of metaphorically tap me on the shoulder and say, look, we're different here, or we don't understand it. But with respect, that's happened everywhere I've been. And I think sometimes you just got to crack on and do what you think is right. Listen to lots of people who understand the context, and then you decide whether, how much of it you've missed and you need to take account of, and how much you just need to keep pushing forwards.
I've seemed to have read about a lot of polling and questionnaires and asking people to feedback in. Does that actually create more difficulties? Because it's the old adage, you get all the answers in and they're all the ones you didn't want them to answer, and then you go, shit, I've got to ignore all of them and crack on with what I wanted to do in the first place. So why bother doing it?
You're talking from a position of your own personal decision making here.
I poll about a lot of things.
It's tricky, you're right, because you're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? If you don't ask people their opinion, then that was wrong. But clearly, the process we've just been through, the consultation process, was designed to listen to people. We genuinely were trying to do that, but it isn't a voting competition. We didn't say, hands up, who wants 4-3-2 teams and where do you want them to be. That wasn't the question. It was, tell us your opinion, but it's the job of the Welsh Rugby Union to make the decision whilst listening to all the information. And then, of course, in that whole plethora of information, there are different groups of people you're going to listen to a bit more than others, and then we've got to do our own analysis and work out the right direction. So it is tricky, but I think we'd rather be on the side of having asked people and people feel like they've had an opinion, rather than just cracked on and got battered for not asking.
We obviously had Bill Sweeney on, and when he came on, we sort of pushed him in a few directions, and he essentially said that when he took over, the obvious answer was to kind of tear the whole system up really and start again. Obviously got an amateur board, professional board, trying to kind of work out how to change that stuff. In terms of you going in there and the freedom to be able to do that, how much have you found do you think needs to change? And also, when people sign up with someone like yourself, obviously knowing what you can do, they say they've got your back, but that's at the start when no one's trying to come after it. Do you feel like you've got the security of people behind you? Because, if the stuff starts to become a bit pressured, will they be like, whoa, Dave, I don't think you can do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess time will tell, won't it? I mean, so far I've had lots of support. I think the board have been fantastic. They've got behind the ideas They've certainly interrogated them, but the fact that we put out a proposal in the way that we did, which was, I think, pretty radical, was, I think, testament to the board getting behind it. And now we're into the implementation piece. There's still a long way to go with this, so we've got to see how we get on with that. But so far so good. All you can do is make a start. But I think what was true in Wales, which might be different from the situation in England, was that it wasn't just the platform was burning; it was under the sea. Going to the seabed. It was crisis can be opportunities, and I think sometimes that situation causes people to maybe to overact in one direction. We definitely don't want to just swing from one direction to the other, but we also shouldn't waste it, because there's an awful lot of potential there, but an awful lot of things that have gone wrong over the years.
Can I ask you a two-pronged question? With all the research that you've done and all the conversations that you've had, one, how did it get this bad? And two, if nothing changes, what happens from here?
Look, I think, how did it get this bad? I mean, I think that results are always tough, right? They're the hardest measure for everything. So, all of the guys in the room understand that if you get on either a winning or a losing momentum, it can steamroller. And I think the results run that Wales went through before the Japan test was an example of that, just compounding on itself. But then when you look back and you look under the surface, actually performances had been going down for sort of 8 or 10 years. It wasn't just the last period of time. It wasn't just COVID. There's plenty of data under the surface that would say, look, there'd been a downward trend for a while. And I think what we'd seen in Wales is some generational talent that had come through at particular times and won some amazing things, got to number one in the world, all the rest of it. But I think over time, as organisations can tend to do, people are taking their eye off the ball. So things like the pathways and investment into really good coaching at lower levels, making sure the competition structures were good enough, making sure that the quality of talent coming into our academies was good enough and being progressed well enough, wasn't happening. So those sort of things over time have come home to roost, and that's where we are. So that creates some opportunities, and a lot of the stuff that people haven't spoken about since we announced the changes is all that stuff that we're doing almost below the waterline. It's easy to talk about how many clubs and all the rest of it, but it's the stuff underneath that's going to make the biggest difference over the next 5 or 6 years.
Which is really interesting, because you mentioned the generational talent, and there have been Grand Slams and World Cup semi-finals and huge contributions to successful Lions tours, etc. You mentioned the 8 to 10 years. I mean, Mike, James and I have done quite a lot of reading in advance of having a chat with you today. And we've got no real clue where to start this conversation in terms of, what is the first thing on your to-do list. So to throw out, you've obviously got the battle between the history and the future of Welsh rugby. You've got leadership issues, commercial challenges, governance problems, misogyny, obviously scandals, structural failings, national v regional, regional v grassroots, declining pathways, coaching merry-go-rounds, one win in 19 and a winless Women's World Cup. So that is some of the challenges. Now that you're in the office, where on earth have you started in trying to get the boat back above the waterline again?
Crikey, I didn't realise the list was that long, but thank you for reminding me of that. But,
there's probably a few others as well there, Dave. You need to extend
he's
yours.
got to go. He's just going to go write his resignation letter. But
there are problems
my job's performance, and if you can start to get the performance right, then everything else will start to take care of itself over a period of time. I think part of doing that is creating space for Steve Tandy and everybody to work. And part of that is an acknowledgement of, a public acknowledgement of where we are. So, probably if I think back to the situation when Gareth Southgate took over England football, similar thing. England were actually lower ranked in the world at the time, 15th in the world. But yet, similar levels of passion. Every time there's a World Cup, everyone thinks England are going to win it because of 66 and all the rest of it. You have to reset. You have to say, look, this is where we are. We've been here for a while. There are some reasons why we are where we are, and therefore the expectations over the next period of time need to be mediated by that. And so that's the first bit. And then what we've tried to do is go really quite hard after the structures that help the sport or hinder the sport. And one of the things that really struck home to me was I'd been in Wales doing a performance audit about 15 years ago when Joe Lydon was there. And I was really struck by, A, how close everything is, in South Wales, how close the clubs are. But B, how uncooperative people generally were with each other. It was very tribal. And that's wonderful on one side of it. But on the other side of things, it means that a country that should be really strong at collaborating and building their DNA and ways of working for their national team just wasn't doing it. And I think that's a huge opportunity. So a lot of the things that we've spoken about beyond the academies and everything else are about trying to really outperform around collaboration. So that's going to lead to some pretty challenging conversations about who employs the players, who employs the staff, so that we can get genuine alignment throughout the system. And then as a result of doing that, I think you've got a chance of helping a small talent pool, because let's face it, there's 49,000 men playing the game, which is small. So we've got to try and do a better job with that talent than Wales have done in the past, and that's where it starts.
Have you had any chats with Phil Ward? Because Wales has followed a very similar path in terms of, it seems for a long period of time it was all about the national team winning, and then Wales, as you said, getting them to number one. And Australia used to be the same thing. There was a time in their past where they had to make a choice between international or the club game, and they went, as long as the Wallabies win, people will keep watching, people will keep funding the game. And then obviously the Wallabies post 2015 sort of went into that massive slump. So at the same time, do you think, look at where Australia has come over since that World Cup in 2023, then they've suddenly created a great group of players. So it's the idea of going through slumps and then coming out the top of them is just sport at the same time. But how do we get to start be at the plateau of the trough so that we can start coming back up the crest of the wave?
I mean, I think we can choose to just say it's cyclical if we want. I mean, there is some cyclical nature to talent. Of course there is. You get generational talent coming through. But I think part of the job of systems is to take out some of the really extreme levels of undulation there. That's why if you've got a seriously good pathway that's working really well, then those ups and downs are less. But you've got a decent supply of talent the whole time. And I think that's probably where we've not done a good enough job over the years. There's definitely been periods when there's been some incredible talent, but what we also know is Wales is a small country and the talent pool is going to be smaller. So we've got to do a better job in not just promoting talent, but really top talent. And I think the other thing you said was, it's all about the national team, and it probably has been a bit, but it's my belief that you need a strong club system as well. So if you've got Welsh clubs really struggling to compete in URC or wherever, then ultimately that's going to hurt your talent pool. It's either the top guys are either going to want to leave and go and play somewhere else, which causes other issues, or you get sort of disengagement with the fan base, and that's been a challenge as well. For
the listeners who don't know and haven't seen the plan you put out, what are the bits that you are focusing on? So obviously we talked about the not just about the top team, it's about the clubs. What are the bits that you've put out there that is your action plan to go ahead? Because I'd love for us to kind of explain. So
the first bit, the headline bit, is the number of clubs. So what we're proposing to do is move from 4 clubs to 3 clubs. So we put out a 2-club model as part of the consultation process, and I think it's no exaggeration to say that most people hated it. But I think that the reality of it is, in either a 3 or a 2, you can make it work with the talent pool that we've got. You just got different choices. At the moment, the talent pool in Wales means that filling 3 teams with top talent is going to be tricky. So hence it comes on to the next level of what we're putting in place, which is really big investment into a national academy. So that's a sort of an extra investment in coaching support staff who will work with a really elite group of 30 players. We're also then cutting the talent pool that the wider group is focused on. So we're going to go from 4 regional academies to 2 regional training centres. that regional training centre group is going to focus on 60 rather than 90 or 95 players, which is what it is at the moment. So we're going to try and raise the floor there to make it harder to be a senior academy player. And then beneath that, we're putting an even bigger investment into player development centres. So 12 centres around Wales. It's about eventually a £2.5 million investment for full-time staff in all of those academies to get hold of the 14 to 18-year-olds and to keep those in the system for longer with real quality support. And then probably the last couple of bits are our proposal that we employ all of the coaching and support staff throughout the system so that we have real alignment for everybody throughout. And then at the top level, we employ the players as well because, again, just aligning player management is a critical part of the journey and making it efficient, as we've seen in Ireland and other places.
What was when everyone went mad about the two clubs? What was the argument that they didn't want to do it? They couldn't decide who it was going to be. Everyone hated it. How are you going to solve that? Because obviously last year or the year before there was that major ruck where they were going to merge a couple of clubs and everyone went turbo. Is that going to be the hardest thing you're going to try?
Going from 4 to 3 is going to be tough. I mean, because we've got we've got generations of fans who've been used to those regional clubs and they've really, really attached to it. So I don't underestimate the emotional cost of cutting clubs, but we've seen it, right? We've seen it in England when clubs like Wasp and others have gone to the wall. It's really tough. So making that as a proactive decision is not any easier. But we have to recognise where we're at in terms of the numbers of players that can realistically populate those clubs, and also there's an economic reality to it. So that the Welsh Rugby Union, if we want to fund 4 clubs to the sort of level that means that they're going to be competitive, and at the same time try and take some of the uncertainty out of reliance on benefactor funding for those clubs, we can't do it at 4. We can, since I published the 2 model, the WRU's had a real hard look at its own finances. It's really pushed itself forwards and challenged itself over the next 5 or 6 years. And that's why we've been able to end up with 3 and still do all the other things that we plan to do. Whereas when we put that out there, 2 was really financially the only answer if you wanted top clubs, with sufficient finance to compete at the top level.
Right, team, we're going to take a quick break to tell you about Tindall Rice, the UK's #1 rice brand.
They've been the rice experts for more than 50 years. They even age their basmati for up to 18 months, so it cooks all fluffy.
Their 2-minute rice pouches will quickly end any disagreement about what's for dinner.
You mean you don't have a chef that cooks all the rice for you?
No.
What is it that you do cook with your rice?
Look, guys, I love being in the kitchen preparing family meals, all right?
Okay.
What meals do you cook?
The best thing about kids is when I'm at home. Obviously, Zara is the one who cooks most of them, but when it's down to me, I want something fast. Tindall Rice hits the spot. Put it in a chili con carne. They love a little Thai green curry at the moment. Throw that in there with the rice, and you're all good.
Who is the fastest eater at Team Tindall Towers?
Depends what it is. I think if you went down a little chicken curry, Mia destroys it all day long.
Okay,
Very
fantastic
quickly.
stuff. Okay, whatever the occasion, if rice is on the table, Tilda is the way to elevate your plate. Can I ask you about how hard it is to get everybody aligned here? Can you see a point in time where everybody is in full agreement with what you're trying to do? Or is that an irrelevance and you need to get done whatever it is you think you need to get done at the expense of alignment and peace and harmony? Is that achievable?
I don't think it's ever possible that you keep everybody happy, and I think if you try and do that, you're doomed to failure. It's I'm very comfortable sitting in the seat and with lots of support and insight from colleagues around me, try and make the right decision, and I'll be judged on those decisions. If they're the wrong ones, I'll have made them for what I thought were the right intentions. But I think, in a multi-stakeholder system, we're all used to it with governing bodies like the WRU or RFU. There's so many different stakeholders. It's almost inevitable if one's happy, someone else isn't. And vanilla's very rarely the answer. We're trying to get something with a bit more flavour in it, put it that way.
Does the narrative matter to you in any way, shape or form? I mean, obviously, we've got some quite hot topics around narratives in rugby right now and whether one or two of us at this table are winning the PR game, etc. Does it matter to you, given all that's going on in Welsh rugby at the moment, that the message you're trying to put out there is received, or is that again just an incidental? Because it feels, I mean, the fallout from Friday was that it was described as a shambles, and I know in March, Abby Tierney said we're going to stick with 4, and I know you wanted 2, you're now going to go with 3. It just feels like trying to get the clarity that most rugby fans, particularly in Wales, are desperate for, is a real challenge right now. Is that an irrelevance, or is that something that perhaps you guys could do better?
No, no, Alex. It's definitely not an irrelevance. I mean, it goes back to something we were speaking about before we came on air, which is communication, right, and making sure that we can get beyond the headlines. I think where we are from Friday, inevitably, people are focused on the headlines, and it's 3 not 2, and when's it going to happen, and all the rest of it. Which, like, I completely get. What we've also got to do is spend some time over the next few weeks is explaining what's underneath that, because there's a huge amount of real positive stuff there. And if we don't explain that to people, then we'll have failed. Because one of the biggest things that came out of all of the consultation meetings was this huge violent agreement that the pathways and investment at that level was absolutely necessary. And we're doing that to a bigger level than probably any union's done in the last 20 years. And yet people haven't heard that yet, because we're still in the noise period after the announcements on Friday.
Okay. Just to get into a bit more detail around the 3, reading around it sounds like Cardiff will continue, the Dragons will continue, and it's going to be either the Scarlets or Ospreys. Do you recognise that, and is that the decision that needs to be taken, or do you see a different way that the cake will be cut?
Look, that's certainly one way it could pan out. There are subtleties about who might choose to own what, but what we've been clear on is the geographical locations of the teams are the ones that we've put out there, one in the capital, one east, one west, because that's what makes sense in terms of the distribution of fans. So how that works out, is it achieved through mergers or takeovers or something different? We don't know yet. That's something we're working through over the next few months.
Have you taken advantage? I mean, one of the great sort of challenges in Welsh rugby over the last 25 years or so has been getting the surrounding regions of the Ospreys to buy into the Ospreys. You've mentioned that tribalism already. Have you taken any advice on how potentially you could then merge the Scarlets into the Ospreys into a team, and how you could sell that to the rugby fans in that area?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think what we've tried to do further down, I mean, in the player development centres and the regional training centres, is almost ignore some of those boundaries. If you think of those 2 regional training centres, there'll be 2. One kind of covering the west and the north, and the other covering sort of central and the east. So that's one thing. And those regional training centres are going to coordinate everything that sits underneath it. I think we need to give it time to settle down, really. I mean, I think at the moment we're in a really emotive period of time. So if there was to be a merger or a change in the west, it's going to take time for people to get used to that, as it did 20 odd years ago when we went to regional rugby in the first place. And I think where this comes back to is we've got to go make sure that the rugby on the field in those clubs is excellent. That it's something compelling. People want to come and watch it. There are teams and players that people are excited to see, because I think that changes things. And I think also, I'm not decrying the history. The history is super important, but we've also got to think about the next generation of rugby fans, rather than people who are my age or older who might have supported a club for 20, 30, 40 years. What are the 10, 12-year-olds looking at? That, because that's going to be the future of the game. So I think we have to be patient. We have to acknowledge the emotion that's going to go with things. But my job's to focus on performance and try and elevate the performance of those teams as well as the national team.
Obviously, the idea is to get the best players on the pitch. If it's 3, if it's 2, wherever it ends up. And then you're talking about those 14 to 18-year-olds, keeping them. I apologies, I don't know what the schooling system of Wales is, how it is right now. Obviously, Llandovery College was always a historical classic school for producing Welsh rugby players. But then, how are you going to go if you shrink that down a bit? How are you going to use those 60 at each of the performance centres? How are they going to get game time to actually bring that talent through? Is that going to be based looking into forgive me,
Premiership?
The Premiership. Is it going to be, because if you look at someone that's come fresh to mind and Noah Kaluri, who's playing Ampthill 6 weeks ago, and now he's in the England squad. So, the talent jump can be very quickly, but it's about having opportunities to do that. So if you're going to have those two, group of 60 players and trying to grab hold of those 14 to 18-year-olds, how are you then going to allow them to go out there and feel that they can challenge to get promoted to what might be the 3 or the 2 unions going forward?
Yeah, so what we're doing in the 14 to 18 group is expanding the focus there. So it's about 130 odd players, and we're going to expand that to 300. And then at the level above, when you get into the academies, that's going to shrink to 60. So it's almost like a wider base and a tighter top. At that top, at the 60 level, there's a couple of things in there, or more than a couple. Of course, the best ones are going to be able to play for those URC teams. They're going to get opportunities. They're going to get opportunities there. Second thing is the SRC. There's a huge number of heritage clubs there. We're putting £500,000 worth of investment into coaching and support into each of those, across each of those clubs, because I think elevating that level is also key to playing opportunities. And then the third piece is we want to establish a centre that really is on top of all of the talent in Wales, that understands where it is, both inside and outside Wales, and be much more active in the kind of loans market, if you will, so that we're actively looking for opportunities for players to go wherever it might be. Could be in France, could be in England, could be wherever, but trying to find the right place for their stage of development. And then, longer term, I think it would be really interesting if RFU were up for it in a particular phase, whether an Anglo-Welsh Championship would be fantastic between SRC and the Championship clubs, because there's some brilliant heritage clubs there, and I think the opportunity to elevate that standard again gives brilliant playing opportunities.
Have you had conversations around that already?
Only very briefly with Connor O'Shea. They've got a lot on their plates at the moment, so I don't think that's anything that's going to be happening immediately. But the competition structures are things that I think everyone's keen to do a better job on going forwards.
Can I ask, and I by all means flick this away and flat bat it, but if you're looking at an Anglo-Welsh competition at sort of championship level and sort of the tier under the regions, would you actually potentially look at regions into Premiership if Premiership's looking to expand? If you were trying to build it again from scratch, would you look at an alternative to what you currently got, or are you happy with the setup you're in?
Yeah, look, I think it was probably the one thing that came out of every single consultation meeting we had was, why don't we just play an Anglo-Welsh competition? So it's easy with hindsight to say we would have done it differently. But I'm just reminded, being back in rugby, there's a lot of people sat in their own self-interested corners and have made deals here, there and everywhere. So look, this is where we are. The competition structures for everybody, I don't think, work as well as they might do. And so we're really committed to a dialogue that looks at what that can look like in the longer term. But short term, we're committed to URC. We've got a contract with them. We're a shareholder in URC. We can't just walk away. We don't want to just walk away. And the other side of that equation is, if there was an Anglo-Welsh League, we'd have to be invited and accepted unanimously by not just all the clubs, but the RFU as well. So quite a long way to go before any of that could happen.
Hang on.
I'd say that's a very interesting answer, Dave.
I'm in on that. That immediately takes me back to my early days, crossing the bridge on a Wednesday night and going to war.
But this was proposed 25 years ago.
Yeah, but I'm talking about even if you do it in the Championship now. The Championship are looking for more games, more value out of what their players are. If you can then create something between, the Welshies, all those regions, whether where Aberdare, where I donned the jersey and everything else, they just want Englishmen to come over that they can smash. That's that is the fundamental. That rivalry will grow if it helps developing players by getting them in those teams and getting the chance to play against Englishmen crossing the bridge. It's a great experience going both ways. It helps the Championship have more competitive games and also should hopefully raise that there's more sponsorship opportunities to put more money into the Championship game, looking at it from an English, and the same for the Welsh side of it. That is a great. What's wrong with that idea?
It unlocks more Noah calories and faster.
Yeah.
When we, this is my words, not yours, but my biggest criticism of rugby is tradition, because it has its benefit, but it's also the reason why everything's held back, I believe. And I believe that we often employ former stars of the game who have very little understanding of how to build the business, but they were legend, they were good people, because that's what rugby attracts, is good people. And, when you look at Tins' R360, it's very interesting that obviously all the unions have come out and said, we don't want to do this, we're not interested, the players can't play. Alex found a very interesting stat that when the first World Cup 1987 was put forward, the same union said they didn't want a World Cup, saw no value in it, and what a complete balls up that was, and what a narrow-minded approach, because it's now the third biggest, if not at times the biggest sporting occasion in the world. When you go to get rid of move these clubs in, and obviously all the different criteria, and as you said, you let things settle, how empowered are you going to be able to be to actually do that? Because what we've noticed over here is, because it's very confusing at times who actually runs rugby, particularly in the UK, who runs rugby, who's in charge. Is there any way for people to block this? Could it be a long-term fiasco that just drags on? Because that's my biggest concern, is that everyone just says, no, we want to do it this way, and everyone gets very emotional. Everyone talks about the past and all these games they used to win, and all this heritage. The fact is, it's got to change. I'm not trying to blow up tradition, but it has to, because it's not going to survive. You talked about the younger fans. When you go to do this, is there a way of people stopping it? Could it be a long, protracted process that, your time might run out and it might not change? Or are you empowered to make those changes? Or are you free to make those changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just on me, as you'll appreciate. There's a lot of stakeholders in there. Could it get blown up? Could it be a protracted process?
That is always the problem, stakeholders.
It could be.
So many of them.
And, look, a lot of what you say resonates, but I think it's probably... look, I've got a healthy degree of optimism and naivety having come back in, but I do think that the game does need to change. I think it's really clear that the international game's pretty healthy, but the club game's got challenges, and it's the issues that we've faced in Wales financially that have led partially to where we are at the moment are the same issues that every other union and every other club game is facing all around the world. Everyone's losing money.
How much is kind of what you're doing from your experience with someone like Clive? I just wonder, because obviously what I led to believe about that era particularly was Clive was, along with yourself, was a great man at kind of going, look, let's find the best solutions, let's break the mould, let's facilitate whatever's required. So, I know that he used to have lots of battles with Francis Barron. He used to be backwards and forwards. And you look at what the freedom he was given to be able to get the things he wanted, the resources he wanted. He was fantastic at having that innovation. Is that basically what you've tried to always do in a different place, and come out and go, look, I'm not frightened to have a ruck. I'm not frightened to have a row, because I genuinely believe this is the right stuff. Because it often feels like in rugby that it's no first, as opposed to going, look, actually, we probably can find that budget, we can push to do that. This is what I've done before. Is that kind of what really fuels what you're doing, because of those experiences of that, and also you basically need that freedom. And did you learn any lessons watching Clive go into bat, fighting Francis all the time?
You definitely learnt some lessons. Clive's he was inspirational in that period of time, and he was a force of nature. He still is, so. Not being afraid to demand the best for players, or to break the mould, or to be wrong breaking the mould sometimes. And I think that's what's also impressive is what I learned from him was the sort of halo effect. If you've got someone out who's going to take the brickbats because he's come up with an idea that might have been a daft idea, it doesn't half make you feel safe underneath it, because it encourages you to push as well. And so leadership wise, I think that's really impressive. But the other thing, I suppose part of that as well is, it's a really common phrase that gets trotted out all over the time. But, if we're just going to do the same things that everyone else is doing, why do we expect that we're going to be any better? And it's the question I ask all the teams I work with is, what are we doing better and differently that's going to make success inevitable? Because if all we're doing is rocking up and doing exactly the same things as England, Ireland, New Zealand, everybody else, then what gives us the right to be any better than them? That would say that we're arrogant enough to think that our talent's better, and I don't think anybody can say that, frankly. You've got to have some stuff. You've got to have something with substance that says actually this makes a difference. So Hask, I think when you were down at Wasp, there would have been things that were done there that were genuinely different from every other Premiership club at the time, and they were the things that you believed in. And because you believed in them, and because most of them were the right things, that builds its own momentum. And I think it's the same with us. And actually, I can remember, if I go back to the sort of 2005s, that sort of era with Wales. Wales had it as well, by the way. I remember going down to the Vale at that particular time. The training centre was miles better than anything we had with England. We had a tent we had a tent at Penny Hill. They had a training centre with a cryotherapy chamber. They had an amazing gym. They had altitude chambers. They were rocking it. Now, those things on their own don't make all the difference. But I'm not afraid to kind of lean into the fact that we do need to do things differently. And I suppose the last thing to say would be, probably as you get a bit older and you've seen a bit more, then your experiences give you a little bit more credibility when you're trying to make these calls, rather than early in your career you've got to really chase hard to get the credibility beforehand.
You had quite a lot of credibility from the start. My like going back on my memories, I think you probably learnt a bit from '99. I think we possibly overtrained going into '99, but that was a combination of Clive and Former's team. But then in '03, I'll always remember Clive always got carried away if we were doing a skills session, and Dave had planned this thing out to meticulous detail in the fact that we got told to go to bed for an after like a mid-morning nap and everything else. But then if Clive overran, Dave knew what they discussed and had no problems just storming onto the field, blowing a whistle and telling Clive to fuck off, get off the field. And Clive would try and come back at him. He went, "No, we fucking agreed this morning. I've got the power on. These are my players right now. You can have them in. I don't know how long the actual fitness side of it. In a month's time, they're your players. At the moment, they're mine. So fuck off." Right. And all the players are going, "This is amazing." But then he'd flog us in all the sessions that we did do, and that was the purpose of it. And I'll never forget that one where we just ran around the fucking pitch, and then you had to sit down for like a minute and then get up and go again. Most horrendous session ever. But it was sort of that. Always having that belief in your coaches. Then Clive would actually back down and go, "Actually, yeah, no, you're right," and he'd get off, and then we go. And you don't always have to agree with everyone. You've got to stick to what you've agreed and have to have someone who can enforce that. And that's one of the things I've always admired about with Dave is he will back he backs what he's doing. Now, sometimes that changes. There may have been a nightclub at Will Greenwood's stag do where I was maybe punishing Dave a little bit for all the pain he'd put me through on shots at the bar, and he was like, "I'm going to kill you in the World Cup warm-up camp." I said, "You've got to make it to the World Cup warm-up camp first, pal."
No recollection of that at all, Tins.
Recollections may vary, as a white person once said.
But you need that balance. You need that, and all our fitness goals weren't set off rugby. They were set off other individual sports, and I think there is performance teams are where you can look to. They're the ones that probably travel the most amount of sports.
Yeah.
They have success and then they want to go challenge themselves at another, and they see so much. They see so much different, and it's hard to do that once you're in the job unless you move over. I mean, Clive I still say to this point, I don't think anyone's done it better than Clive did in terms of going and visiting other sports and looking over and going, what aren't we doing? And the things he pulled back. And as Dave said, he got some right, he got some wrong. But, you've got to look at evolving, and that means looking outside of your own arena and trying to pull things in. And if they're trying to do that, then I'm all for it.
Can I ask you, Dave, I want to ask you about expectations on November in just a moment or two, but first of all, there are some good news stories in Welsh Rugby at the moment. I think you're on course for a record turnover year, 117 million in the current financial year to end of June 2026. So the money looks like things are moving in the right direction commercially. Can I just ask you about timelines? If I'm a Wales fan now, how long is it going to take for you to implement some of this and to generate genuine change in fortunes? I mean, we're hearing 2028 is the timeline to get down to 3 regions. It's another 3 years with another 3 years where potentially things, are going to sink a bit further. How quickly can you make the change you want to make?
Look, I mean, I think if we start from the top down, Steve Tandy and his team are going to make it. They're going to make an immediate impact in terms of below the line, the coaching, the engagement, the connection between the players. So I think that's going to help us in terms of the identity and style that people see. I think people are going to need to be a bit more patient on the result side of things in the autumn and the Six Nations. That's going to take longer. The club game, we would love to be in a position where we're at 3 clubs playing URC next season, but that's going to be very challenging to execute. Wow. With the timelines that we've got at the moment and the work we've got to do with the clubs and the URC ourselves. But that's the ambition. So, I would hope it's no worse than the season after that. And then the stuff under the surface, the academies and all the rest of it, we're itching to get going. So, probably May, June time next year, when all the finances roll over, that's the time we can really start to get out of the gates and start to move on that sort of thing. But of course, that's a long term project. That's your 5, 6, 7 year pipeline that we're trying to build there. What I hope we'll do throughout that period of time is just stay in touch and communicate with people. We realise results are the most important benchmark for people, but if we've got some of those changes coming through, if you think about the clubs, if in let's call it 2 seasons time, we've got clubs that are financed properly, on the field, off the field, so they can recruit top talent, we can be challenging towards the latter stages of the playoffs in URC. I think they're the sort of things that people are going to get excited about. If you've got a competition that's starting to attract some talent back into Wales that might be playing elsewhere, I think that's going to excite the fans as well. And then then it's a building process. So there's a World Cup coming up in 27, which will be a great benchmark for us. But I'd say again, this is probably a 5 or 6 year journey. It's definitely not a 1 or 2 year journey.
So give us a mark out of 10 for the hand that you think you are holding right now, and give us a mark out of 10 you would like it to be as Wales head into the Rugby World Cup 2027. On
the back of what we've announced, the hand we're holding now?
Yes. The current situation relative to where you want it to be in 2 years' time.
I mean...
It's currently holding 7 high if we're going in a
yes,
poker.
Exactly. He's all in on 7 high.
I don't know if
where are we going to get to?
I'm no poker hand expert. I don't know. We're maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10 at the moment. There's some serious work we need to do. And if we're going 5, 6 years into the future, I think we're at 7 or 8. And then you've got, if your foundations are solid, then that's the sort of stuff that can really provide you with a platform to do something, some things that are maybe even more innovative and and developmental after that point. But yeah, they're the sort of numbers I throw on it.
Obviously, everything, like you said, there's lots of emotion. You've got a plan. Is there any point where you will look into it and go, look, if I'm not able to do these things, then that'll be me done, because sometimes I think with lots of time in rugby, you've seen people come in and because they're frustrated, because there are issues, eventually it becomes untenable, because a lot of people come in and go, I'm able to do this, this and this. And normally in rugby, the politics, the bullshit gets in the way and then you're not able to act. Have you given yourself a timeline? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes when things get complicated, goodwill runs out, people start getting a bit funny or do you not see that happening?
I wouldn't sort of create a hostage for myself on that, but I also think you, as you'll realise, when you come in, you've only got a fresh perspective for a certain period of time, and you've only got a relatively limited amount of time to put plans in place that make a difference. The other side of it is I'm 56 years old. I'm not a headbanger. I'm not about to stay around for 5 or 6 years banging my head against a wall that's never going to move.
Fine.
You have to feel like there's some momentum there, and I think at the moment, in terms of the work we've done and what we've put out there, that gives us the potential for momentum. If it takes us 3 years to get to the next stage, that's going to be a real challenge for everybody, not just me. So I think it's in everybody's interest now to yes, have a strong opinion, by all means, object, but what we need to do is get past that now and start to get behind something. And the quicker we can do that, the quicker things can change.
Now we're taking a quick time out to talk about our fantastic partners Harvey Norman. They are a global retail giant and they've recently opened their first UK superstore in Merry Hill, which is just outside Birmingham.
They are the expert when it comes to furniture, home goods and cutting-edge technology, and the destination to upgrade to a next-gen AI PC powered by Snapdragon.
And we rely on their tech to run this very podcast. Why? You get amazing multi-day battery life, enhanced device security, and built-in AI, which allows for a personalised user experience that makes everything run faster.
Inbuilt AI means less work for producer Tom. Do we actually still need producer Tom? I'd say no. I'm already seeing the future. Next-gen AI is here and it's powered by Harvey Norman.
So if you're looking to upgrade to the latest technology, something with that next level speed and security, head online or visit your local Harvey Norman store today.
Looking forward to what's coming up in the autumn. Obviously, it has been a tough run of games, the last 19 games. How are you basically asking all the coaches to feed a confidence? You know, it's sometimes easier when you're on a bad run to just go, right, fuck it, lads, go out, enjoy yourself. How are you approaching that with the coaches in terms of what the pressure is historically of Test match rugby, that winning is more important? Or are you going to be able to go in with it, right, we've got to look at what's going to be our identity moving forward? What are we as a Welsh team? You know, historical Welsh teams keep the ball alive. They like to play fast movement rugby, still like having a forward pack that can mix it. So how are you going to sort of create that identity with a confidence that you can go and put it out on the field? Or give the confidence to the boys that they can go put it out on the field?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've spoken to Steve a lot about this. I mean, the first stages are very much about identity and putting the building blocks of an identity in place for the team so that, you know, fans can come to Principality and see something that represents a style that they can identify with, and it's a style that people can see as a style that people are trying to play. You know, that's it in the first instance. Pressure-wise, there'll always be pressure, but at the same time, almost I'll argue at the moment there isn't any, because you know we've been on a run for a long time. I think we're way past the point of people saying, like, screw it, let's do it. I think it's more about, look, it's acknowledging we've got a young team who are at the start of a journey with Steve to build something. And that's going to have some ups and downs in it. And if we'd have picked an autumn, we probably couldn't have picked one that was a lot more difficult than the run of games we've got. But at the same time,
I heard you put in to make sure that the URC clubs didn't let the South African players out of their contracts. So well done, you.
But you know, I think the other side of that is, as you know, you get a great benchmark. You understand where you are, and then if you've got a great coaching team around you who are, you know, focused on how can we get better, and there's a plan in place to get better. That's the thing that I think gives people confidence. So you know, that's what it looks like in the short term. And Steve's he's an exceptional individual. He's got brilliant relationship skills. He's got, you know, he's massively driven, and he's a very proud Welshman. But he's one of the best people connectors I've ever met, and I'm sure that is going to give players an awful lot of safety in the way that they're able to go out and express themselves and play.
Dave, thank you so much for joining. It's been really, really interesting hearing your side of it. And I know there is so much noise around at the moment. I'm sure you're picking your way through it. There are probably 1,000 questions and 100 topics not had the time to cover, but hopefully we can do that as things progress. And apologies, you know, I know how high emotion is, and if we haven't covered all of the moving parts, as everyone would have liked, that's part of the nature of having, I suppose, a 45-minute conversation. But just a final question. What is your message to Wales fans now? If you are a fan of the Ospreys and the Scarlets and you're waiting for to find out the future of your region, you know, that's one thing. We've obviously not touched on the women in great detail. Had a winless Rugby World Cup. We're already hearing that 25% of professional players may have to go and look for work elsewhere. You've got a phenomenally difficult autumn ahead of you. What is your message to region fans, Welsh fans at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's let's get together. I mean, I think the phrase that I've put out there, you know, a few times now is if we want to go fast, you go alone. If we want to go far, we go together. Now's the time to come together. Right, so everyone's had their say. We've made some decisions, and what we need people to do now is get behind it. if we don't get behind it, then we can expect more of the same going forwards. And I think we've got a real opportunity to just get back behind the nation and get back behind the teams again. So I do understand the emotion, and we're not through all of that yet because we're still making decisions. But people have got a choice. They've got a choice to back it and trust it, or they've got a choice to continue to be destructive. And I really hope people will choose the former, because I don't really see any other way. We know change is needed. We've announced what the changes are. What we need now is everyone get behind that. And if everyone gets behind that, I really believe there's a bright future ahead.
Good luck.
I believe
Good luck,
you just
good luck.
quoted a song from a kid's movie there.
Is that it?
It's in a kid's movie. I can't remember what it is. If you want to go far, do you go
Frozen.
to
It was
go?
probably,
I can't
probably
remember.
Moana or something, one of the classics.
Yeah. I think it is Moana 2 or something. I don't know.
It might be the legendary known as the Dave Reddin Moana speech.
That's it, yeah, exactly.
That galvanised the WRU into
I'll get you in there to
transformation.
do the soundtrack, Hask, if that's all right.
Yeah, if you would, that'd be great.
Listen, go on.
What
I
were
was
you
going to say, we have a saying in the Premiership, you need a strong Leicester to have a strong league. And I think everybody in the World Game wants to see a strong Wales for a strong international game. It benefits no one to have England winning by 60 in Cardiff and years and years and years without a win. So I genuinely do hope that things turn really quickly for you. We're incredibly grateful for your time. I know you've got a huge amount going on. So thank you so much. Good luck.
There's a couple of things. It's Mufasa.
Mufasa,
So it's Lion
right.
King Mufasa that it's in.
Good.
And also, before you do any meetings with the any Welsh clubs or Welsh regions, you probably want to take the 2003 Grand Slam put off the wall.
There's space on the wall just waiting for the next one.
Like, you need to find some Welsh ancestry. You need to get a bit of red going on in the background because,
Di Reddin's got a lovely ring to it. Yeah. And there he goes. Another show where we've been discussing the challenges within rugby union right now. But if he can't fix it, can anyone?
Look, I won't say a bad word about Otis. I think.
Why is it called Otis? Did we solve that
Otis
one?
Redding.
Oh, easy. I thought it was something else.
Welcome to the game.
I think everything that I've worked with him, and you don't then go work at the FA, and you don't do the Olympics. You don't, two of the biggest jobs, and not be good at what you do. I think what you could see from him there is he knows he doesn't have to be the flavour of the month with everyone. He's actually got to just have a fresh eye, and I think people just need to let people like that have a crack at it. And you might not like some of the things, but you've got to be prepared to see where it goes. You've got to be able to look 10 years down the line about where you want to be, and that's the.
My worry is there are such large challenges to overcome. There are so many people who've put so much in, and so many people who are so passionate about elements that are going to have to fall by the wayside.
But this is the thing about change.
challenge.
Someone's always going to have to let go of what you've done in the past and stop thinking that you're
not very good at
important.
that.
And rugby isn't about that. We can accept that people have given something to the game, but it might have been not necessarily always in the right way of the game. And I think we all sit here and love the game, no matter what some people say about me right now. But even like the Premiership, it doesn't matter what it is, they all need to succeed, but they all might have to look at a fresh way of doing it.
My only concern with that is what we've learned from rugby, and particularly doing this show, is using Steve Borthon as an example. Do you remember, like, part of the season, everyone's fire him, get rid of him, then we win. We win a couple of games. Just 2 weeks later, the flavour of the month. The landscape of rugby moves so quickly. My concern is. So if you come out and said the clubs, and his quote was definitely 3. That's what he wants, right? So he's just set his stall out. We then got the autumn internationals, right? Say the average fan doesn't listen to this, which he should do, doesn't understand what's going on. If Wales get drilled, then all the pressure starts to come on the Welsh squad. The criticism starts to come onto him. My concern is well, Tins actually said it. He's got the backbone to be able to do it, but it's not easy because the landscape moves so quickly from phase to phase. Because we are autumns, then it'll be Six Nations, then it's summer tour, then it's trying to change the team. My concern is that the narrative changes, the pressure comes on, it becomes all disparate, and how long can you stomach that? because, like in England it's bad, but England's not. It's not a national sport. Let's be honest. Welsh rugby really is the national sport over there, and there's a lot of entrenched views. Like my concern is how will he be able to deal with it? But you said that he seems to.
Yeah. It's going to be tough, no matter what. But people have got to be prepared to look at it through a different lens, and because if you can do that, you never know where it might head up. I think if they can find a way of harnessing the youth. Like we'll always describe that when we went back, and I know it's a long time ago, that last Lions where we went into Aberdare and everything else, we had 2,500 people watching that game. Yep. And there was a under-15s game going on which had 1,000 people watching it. So there is still all that competition. I love the idea of to help both the Championship and the SRC, if you could have that sort of Welsh Anglo League for that level and give those players that sort of feeling of crossing the bridge. It brings an international feel to it and something different to the norm, and allows another, where actually the game needs to be able to monetize and has room for player welfare in terms of shifting. Yep. It is probably at that level.
What do you reckon, though? Just hypothetically. So we've got R360, we've got stuff going on in Wales, got everything else. Obviously, there's loads of stuff coming out about it. Everyone's trying to change. What's the betting that in 2 years' time we're exactly where we were, without nothing
That's where
changing?
I put my money right now.
I would say, well, say for example, that, whatever reason stuff doesn't come off, and everyone said no. I genuinely believe that we could be in exactly the same place, but then what happens after that? What do we lose more clubs?
Well,
stuff
how
fall
long
apart?
does it keep going?
That's
How
what I
does it
mean.
keep going?
Because at the moment, if the alternative is R360 and the alternative is what he's putting there, but the norm is the norm.
Quite a profound question.
Yeah, because I don't. All I'm seeing with every union is not no. But what are they offering
It's
to
amazing
change?
what a
narrative-
weekend in Amsterdam.
Yeah, but what do they change?
But the narrative in the game right now, across the board in rugby, is that there is small pockets of progress, but fundamental changes needed to safeguard the game for the future. But no one is prepared to change.
And
that is where we're at.
But I also don't think anyone's not saying they don't like the game in terms of. They don't want it to succeed as it is now. It's just you might have to package that differently.
But no one's saying what I've not heard from anybody is an alternative, like an idea. I've heard no, I don't like. But I've not heard anybody suggest anything different, which is the bit I'm really concerned about. Because at least you try it and see what goes on.
Well, someone's trying it, and a bit stuck in the mud at the moment potentially. But if anyone else out there has got any great ideas and the funding to go and do it, let's hear the ideas.
And I listen to
the man in the arena.
I listen in Saudi Arabia. Just give us a bill and we'll make this whole happen. You did it with Live Golf. We can make this happen.
Okay. Now it's time for something a little bit special. As always, a little highlight of the week for Good Bad Rugby, because we're bringing back our moment of excellence where we raise a glass to something exceptional that has happened in the rugby world. And when you're talking excellence, there is only one name that fits, and that is Rémy Martin.
To be honest with you, we've got the perfect man in the studio too. That Jack Charlton from Rémy Martin is going to come in and help us enjoy it and understand it.
Welcome to you. You've raised your dress sense.
Thank you very much.
GBR. I think we could learn a thing or two.
More knitwear.
Welcome to the
Maybe you're just behind
I am,
the times.
Or maybe I'm just young and sprightly. I don't know.
Something like that. Can we just start with a quick congratulations as well?
Oh, thank you.
Are we allowed to put that out there into the public? Is that classified
No,
information?
that is.
You've had a big month because you
just got engaged.
So now we have something properly to celebrate. So you lead us forth, therefore, in the celebration.
Absolutely.
Stay on this.
What
I only
Come-
brought one bottle.
Come and chat to.
It's like that scene out of Old School, isn't it? It's good. More for me and you.
Exactly. Right,
So,
lead us off.
Yeah, so we've got a lovely end of year gift bottle of VSOP, so Rémy Martin VSOP. So cognac.
Out of the box.
Very superior,
fresh
very
out.
superior old pales, just let you know what that means.
Very much indeed.
Box fresh.
Keep that here.
See, I think someone's
Yeah.
already
I have,
10
yeah.
points to Gryffindor straight
Yeah,
away.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm salivating.
So we're going to pour a little. I'm just going to move the mic so I
Yeah.
don't make a mess. So pouring a lovely VSOP just on ice, nice generous measure.
Yeah,
Hask.
generous.
Generous is very
Generous, yeah.
key in this studio.
Alex probably won't drink it because he's the
I like the
ultimate drink
ice.
chucker.
I'm in it for the ice. Right, so you're going to do the honours.
I will indeed. So
Thank you very
Push
much
you on the
indeed.
toilet so you've got the longest arms. So you
Yeah.
can reach over there with that. Thank you.
So in your glass, you've got 300 years of excellence, well, 301 years of excellence. So Rémy Martin, founded in 1724.
Yep.
This is our VSOP, so very superior old pale. I think, you were right.
Yeah.
You nailed it on the head. But can you tell us how you would enjoy it? What's your
well,
tips?
obviously, there's a lot of misnomers around drinking cognac, especially Rémy, where you would heat it up, you'd have a different glass. Very simply, the best way to enjoy it is on ice. So the first thing you would do is obviously look at it, check it out, look at the beautiful liquid, give it a smell.
Enticing all the senses. We're hearing it.
Vanilla? Am I getting vanilla again?
I'm getting apple. That's wrong.
Yeah, I get lots of kind of really subtle, smooth, oaky notes, and I think people obviously mistake cognac and whiskies as well. So obviously quite similar, but for me, I think cognac is a lot more complex. You know, comparing cognacs and whiskies is like comparing a soloist to an orchestra. There's a lot more going on in a glass of cognac.
It is mind-boggling, the amount of blends and then the log notes of how you blend.
detail,
and there could be one that is 35 years old, a 12-year-old that tastes completely different. And it's just like the greatest alchemy show ever.
Absolutely,
if you
yeah.
can
And
ever go.
that balance and that harmony, it's kind of like the heavy, the light, the strong.
Yeah, but that's what I didn't understand about it was that, like, for example, wines, you get a different year, there's different flavour profiles. This has to remain exactly the same standard the entire time. So you have to, that blend and the cellar master's work to create that is insanity.
It's like you guys, you all balance each other out
Wow.
quite nicely.
There's
you
not a
know?
lot of perfection or excellence around here, I can tell you for free.
We could always lose one.
So this is obviously excellence in a glass. What we are going to do is bring in our Rémy Martin moment of excellence from the week that has been in the world of rugby union. Do you want to lead us out? Who's caught your eye?
It's all about timing and coming into form and timing. You could say Noah Kaluri was coming into form, but then he got to play against the guy who's the in-house incumbent in Tommy Freeman, and to score 4 against Sarries, come away with the win, just showed Tommy Freeman's true class.
My shirt, you better come and get it. Not giving it
exactly. And the way he did it all was slightly different.
Yeah.
All lines, bumping people, just follow up lines. I thought it was a full overall world-class performance.
Class in a glass from Tommy Freeman for you.
I'm going to go for Henry Pollock and his new lid. One way
Shining bright.
How jealous are you of the new lid?
Well, I mean, mine's.
I know,
I've
you've got a new lid.
I've got incredible hair.
Who's got a new
reckon
hairstyle?
you could throw
Dye it?
No, if you.
I'm not sure you want to
do
put
you do
chemicals on this. It
that?
might
Yeah,
see it
I was
again.
thinking of that.
It's like an endangered species. There should be a little sign: "Don't walk on the lawn. Do not touch this." No, but I like what he's done there. He's done the Will Greenwood School of Selection.
Yeah.
Dye my hair bright blonde, so I cannot not be noticed.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, and I think he's playing well, doing well, and it's just as perfect sign as pick me, pick me.
I will give a quick nod to Joe Thockensinger's offload for the Guy Pepper try as Bath ran right against Bristol at the weekend.
Again, as well, Singer, you think of how we've got 6 wingers in that squad. He could quite easily be in there playing for that Bath team.
Yeah. That was this week's Rémy Martin moment of excellence. We're going to raise a glass to Tommy Freeman, to Henry Pollock, and to Joe Thockensinger. Well done to you fellas. Thank you for letting us celebrate your excellence.
Lads.
Jack, congratulations to you as well.
Thank you very much.
As always, an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure to have you in studio.
Will you drink?
I've even finished my glass.
Will you drink?
It's the noise as well.
It's all the senses.
It's all the senses.
Sight, smell.
And as always, hashtag please enjoy Rémy Martin VSOP responsibly. Thank you, Jack. Good luck to Dave Reddin. Good luck to all in Wales. I think everybody, and I probably speak for most rugby fans, would love to see the Dragons roar this. Just imagine if they beat the All Blacks. Then suddenly the coffers will fill again. And what was the problem? A couple of bits, guys, before we go. We have got signed copies of our new book, The Good, the Bad and the Rugby Reloaded, which is available to pre-order at Waterstones. And we'll have details on how to order on our screens and in the episode description box. Couple of notes just before we finish up. Ed Slater's 7-4-5 game. You were dusting off your boots once more.
Yeah, I might have done a hill sprint session the other day whilst I was down away with the kids for half term, and still regretting that. So, but it was better than Andy the Beast Beatty. But he has had numerous knee operations, so not sure I'm taking much away from that. The game is King's Home on Sunday the 9th of November. It is a 5:40 kickoff. Please come down if you can and find out that my cousins are coming to watch, which is very nice of them.
Nice.
It's a hybrid rules Union League match. I did spend a bit of time on the rules. You can have as many tackles as you want in your own half. But then once you get in the opposition half, you only get 6. No, I haven't gone as in depth of figuring out how then the kicking game comes into that or what. But it was quite long. I went on the website and sort of reading it and then sort of got a bit overwhelmed by it all. I wasn't going to say I fell asleep, but I got a bit overwhelmed.
Just carry
by it.
hard, Tins. Just carry hard. Don't worry too much about the rest of it.
I will
Just
not,
Keith
I will
Senior
not-
it.
Yeah,
Just
I'll
Keith
not
Senior.
high elbows, and it hard.
Yeah.
Obviously, it is to unite the rugby family, and legends from both codes will go head to head to raise awareness and support the fight against MND, raising money for the great causes that are Fort Ed Foundation, the Rob Burrow Discretionary, and My Name's Doddy.
And big shout out to NJ Dance and their 42 dancers who will be performing at half time of the 7-4-5 game. One of the dancers' parents passed away in 2024 after suffering from MND, and the illness has been the focus of their recent fundraising.
All the more significant as well, given the recent news around Lewis Moody, who is delivering the match ball at Twickenham on Saturday ahead of England against Australia.
It is also on TV.
It is. It's on TNT Sports and
Sports.
Discovery Plus. So if you're not buying a ticket, you should be. But if you can't get there, then do tune in and perhaps make a little donation as well for a remarkable cause. Talking of the remarkable, Vale Emily Scarrett. What a knock that has been.
I sent her a voice now, and I sort of didn't really know what to say because she's sort of done it, and she's always done it in such a classy way. And to play at that level for that long, and how much respect even the girls now have for her, it's quite amazing. It's the sort of opposite of Hask, in every sort of way. Respect, likability.
Hell of a career though.
Yeah, unreal. I mean, look, she's a credit to her sport. I think to do it the way she's done it, to be universally liked by everyone, to achieve what she's achieved, World Player of the Year, caps, kicking goals, just absolutely living the dream and playing consistently, recovering from a really bad neck injury. I don't think you can underestimate how bad that was. Most people wouldn't have made it back from that. And I think for her to do it, to win 2 World Cups, and obviously to have a show named after her, which I'm still jealous about. Fair play to her. She's a massive part of everything we do our end, and I wish her the best of luck in the future.
Another very interesting debate on the good, the bad and the rugby. Hot topics surround us at the moment in the game of rugby union, but we will get back to the good stuff on the field over the next 3 or 4 weeks or so as the Autumn Nations series gets underway. Thank you as always to Continental Tires, our sponsors, who are also sponsors of the Continental Tires Schools Cup, driving the next generation from the ground up. We're a folding pocket production, stats and facts provided by Russ Petty. This episode was produced by Tom Edwards. Enjoy the Mega Rugby this weekend, and we'll see you next week for a debrief. Bye for now.
Was that me, or were you Tom Wedwards then?
You've been listening to The Good, Yay, The Bad, and The Rugby, Oof, with Alex Payne, James Haskell and Mike Tindall. Thanks for listening.